Pashas Vayeshev is the beginning of exile. An exile that is still not over. Golus Mitzrayim was the mother of all Goliaths. It was the mother because every other exile is only using some of the tricks that originated in Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim came up with all of the tricks. They understood the human organism, and they understood how to manipulate every single possibility, every nerve, every organ, to understand its function and to understand how do we take control of the human being through this function. How do we enslave the spirit through the entanglements of the body? And so, what started then, by people very wise, who understood the nature of humanity very deeply, eventually became tools in the hands of barbarians who didn't understand the nature of humanity at all, nor did they care. And so exile starts with the brothers selling Yosef to Mitzrayim. The brothers selling Yosef to Mitzrayim is the beginning of what brings Yakov to Mitzrayim. Yakov going to Mitzrayim is the beginning of Klal Yisrael being enslaved in Mitzrayim. Klal Yisrael being enslaved in Mitzrayim is the beginning of Klal Yisrael thinking like slaves and falling for the egel, which was created by the Egyptians amongst them. And falling for the egel meant that the Beis HaMikdash was not going to last, that exile is inevitable, and that we're going to end up right where we are. So what leads the charge to exile is the brothers selling Yosef HaTzadik. The brothers selling Yosef HaTzadik represents the body, the organism, all the forces within are not getting along as one. There's judgment between the organs. Judgment between the organs means that the body is not being run efficiently. Klal Yisrael is not being run efficiently. Yaakov Avinu no longer has a proper resting place in this world because the parts, the 12 stones that became one when he went to sleep, are now fighting with each other. The parts are not getting along. The Koiches HaShamayim, the Mazolos, the 12 Mazolos, the 12 astrological signs, represent certain personalities that are trying to act through us, certain forces that create instinct, create behavior. These forces are no longer getting along. There's conflict between the signs, between the parts, the 12 parts that are supposed to be one are no longer one, because there's jealousy. Instead of every part being proud to do their part, different parts are jealous of other parts. Instead of the organism being a united unit, Everyone wants to be something else. Everyone is looking at the other to find out what they want. Why does he get to be the brain? He gets to do all the thinking and make all the decisions. Why shouldn't I? Why does she get to be the heart? She gets to be in charge of everything in the body. A body that would think like that wouldn't last very long. A family is a spiritual body. A community is a spiritual body. A nation is a spiritual body. A body that thinks, I want to be whatever I want to be without any context, cannot last. The Shvatim each have a different flavor. They have something else that they're meant to give. They're only doing their service when they're doing what they're meant to be doing in coordination with all the others that are meant to be doing things. The nature of creation is that we, the one, became we the many. When we the one becomes we the many, he now has to be able to find his place amongst the many. He now needs to learn how to interact with the many and not interfere with the many. This is something that he's not used to. Where he comes from, he's everything. He's not used to being part of many. He's not used to playing his function. And this is why already in the beginning of creation, there was a shviras hakelim, there was a breaking of the vessels. Every one of the vessel said, I want to be in charge. When all the vessels want to be in charge, nobody's in charge. Everyone breaks. And so creation is a process where the one who is everything learns how to be less than everything. And that's how he becomes everything again. He learns how to play his specific function. And that's how he's part of everything. Just like every cell in the body learns how to play its specific function. And then the body is everything. Then every cell, when the body is healthy, has its purpose fulfilled. It's everything that it could be. It's everything it ever wanted to be. If it was a cell that's doing the functions of all the different organs together, it's no good for any function. It needs to be specifically the one that does the function that it's meant to do. It's meant to learn that function well, to bond with that function, to become that function, to be proud to do that function, and not to be looking at any other functions of what could have been or what might have been, and maybe in accordance with their opinion it should have been. All those are forms of disease. They're the beginning of conflict. And this is exactly what happened in Klal Yisrael. It happened by the Shvatim. It happened later on. The same thing happened again. This is why the Malchus Yisrael was only united by Shaul, by David, and by Shlomo. That was it. After that, the kingdom was split. Because Yehuda and Yosef represent very different approaches to reality. All the organs represent very different approaches to reality. But this is the purpose of being human, is to unite all these different approaches into one. Because that's where the truth is. The truth is the place where all the mazalas, all the kechavim agree to one truth. Anywhere else, and something is being pulled out of balance. Some part of the being is losing its place at the table. It's losing its respect. And that's eventually going to be costly. Everything is necessary. Every part is there for a reason. Every part is balancing out something else. As soon as something is off, there's a domino effect. And that trickles into our thoughts, to our feelings, to our speech, to our behavior. And so here, in the beginning of exile, in the beginning of, we might call the events unfortunate, but really at the end we're going to see that this was the specific recipe that was necessary. And so if we look more long term, if we look by the tens of thousands of years rather than by the thousands of years, then it's not even unfortunate. But nevertheless, this process of Klal Yisrael going into exile, and two very interesting stories are mentioned in the Torah right next to each other. Two stories that have contradictory messages, which is very Toradic. This is expected from the Torah, that will show the range of things, not simply one point. And so we have the story of two different women that seduced men. One of them successfully, one of them not successfully. Both of them based on an intuition about destiny. Both of them inspired by a knowledge of the future. A knowledge that through them, somehow, something very good is about to come to the world. And in the ancient world, this was what they were very much into, because the world was still like a clean canvas. Everybody was concerned with the future. In a way, we might say they were worshipping the future and we're worshipping the past. They didn't have a past to worship the way that we do. Everybody was descendants from the same man. Everybody knew the families that came. Everything was very fresh, it was very simple. So this is why we see the blessings about people becoming nations. Your children will be nations, your children will be kings of nations. Everything was still very, very young and fresh. People looked at the world and they were anticipating. And they knew that the one who designed life has an intent for life. And therefore those who have within their destiny to bring an important figure into the future, those people, those relationships would be guided and protected by destiny. They understood life to be that way, that there are those that are at the center of the story. There are the main actors in life, and then there are the actors that are playing supporting roles. Just like in the species, there are the main species, there is the one species that all the other species were created for, and then there are helper species. There are other forms of life, there are other forms of existence that are assisting the purpose. And so too within humanity, there are those that will continue to exist because they are the destiny, and there are those that are playing a supporting role. They come and they leave based on what's necessary on the planet. Every force has a purpose, but not every purpose is as close to the ultimate destiny as others. Every purpose, every individual, every experience, every process, every force has its place, its importance. And this is something that is everywhere within nature. When nature creates, nothing is ever equal. Everything is in a hierarchy, and the closest demonstration is the body, where we see clearly, we can see with our physical senses how the different parts of the body come together to create the body. Everything is part of the whole, and yet some parts are a lot more important. Some parts are critical, while other parts we can live without. The organism can continue without. And so when they looked at life, they saw themselves in the context of their influence on destiny. If they want to get along with the Creator, they have to align with destiny. They cannot confront destiny, the destiny of man. If they somehow become an obstacle to the destiny of man, then that pretty much guarantees their demise. And this is what happened, for example, to Amalek. After Yetzias Mitzrayim, destiny was taking place, and Amalek found his moment to show off. And that resulted in a curse that Amalek cannot exist together with the truth on this planet. It's not that resulted in the curse, because it's never an activity that results in a curse. It's the activity that proves to us that this was his potential, this was his essence. This was what he really stands for. His essence is what caused him to be wiped away from the planet before the planet can be corrected. But where did we see his essence most? Where did he demonstrate to us his essence? In that confrontation, where Klal Yisrael was being led towards destiny, humanity was coming closer to destiny, the world was excited, the entire solar system was getting into a groove, and here comes Amalek and tries to stop the music, tries to destroy this opportunity that is about to put everything straight, about to fix everything that was wrong. So this is a demonstration of essence. And this demonstration is what we call the cause. Because even though we are what we are in our essence, we cannot be judged on this planet based on our essence, because our essence is not available to be judged by. And so only when we manifest from our essence can we get judged by it. So this is also the concept of a nisayon. When somebody gets tested, it doesn't mean that Hashem is looking to see if they're going to pass the test. It means that this is an opportunity to manifest a potential from the essence in order to demonstrate into this world of judgment what your true reality is. And so the essence was there, you were there, you had the power to do this before. But through bringing it out into manifestation, now you can be judged based on it. You can receive reward based on your essence, based on what you always were and always will be. And so in these two stories, the women are trying to accomplish something because of an intuition about the future. And one story, Yehuda and Tamar, and from there comes Mashiach. The other story, Yosef and the wife of Potiphar, and even from the little bit that happened, tremendous pain, tremendous suffering results. From one comes Mashiach. From one come the Asura Riga Malchus. So you see how the Torah is giving us information, is giving us a contrast to the extent that we can't really learn about the actions, we can't really learn about the behaviors. What we're learning about is about the intent, about the intention. And even though to us both seem to be legitimate intentions, both of them are trying to make themselves useful to destiny to some degree. And yet Tamar, who was the daughter of Shem, who was in line with the appropriate beliefs, she brings the soul of Mashiach into the world through this interaction. And the wife of Potiphar, who is based in Egyptian culture, is based on very different forms of beliefs. What she was trying to accomplish would cause tremendous suffering, tremendous harm. And so these stories are very important as exile is coming upon the world. What is the nature of exile? The nature of exile is that people can no longer behave the way that they would naturally behave. People can no longer do what their spirit would want them to do. They now have to listen to something else, to someone else. They have to live life through a culture that is foreign to them. And this means that we can no longer differentiate the actions. Going into exile means we won't be able to judge people based on their actions any longer. When we're in a place of redemption, when the truth is known, when we live our true reality, then the actions tell us what's in the heart. When we live in exile, the actions don't tell us what's in the hearts. What's in the hearts is only known to the heart. The actions are based on the circumstances. The circumstances are not allowing the spirit to reveal its true nature. And so we go into Mitzrayim because Yosef gets sold into Mitzrayim. Yosef represents relationships, specifically male-female relationships. So Yosef is going into Mitzrayim, meaning relationships will not be what they were meant to be. This is the beginning of all exile. The beginning of all exile is the deterioration of relationships, specifically male-female relationships. And then, once that deterioration takes place, all the Shvatim, all the rest of the body, all the rest of the being, everything comes into exile. Even Yaakov, the spirit, has to come into exile together with them. Because if the relationships are not healthy, then all the organs suffer. Yeah, Yosef is in charge of the relationships, but all the organs need the relationships. So when Yosef goes into Mitzrayim, we know the relationships are not going to be what they're supposed to. And yet, some relationships are going to bring Mashiach, while other relationships are going to bring severe suffering. That's the message that we get from these two stories as Yosef is being sold into Mitzrayim. The relationships will not be what they should be. And yet, based on the individual, based on the intentions, based on what's happening behind the scenes, will the future be created. And that's because what creates the future is not our actions. What creates the future is in our hearts. Our hearts create the future. Our hearts create entities, beings, electromagnetic energies that last much longer than our actions, that stay and run this planet long after we leave. They live not only within the humans that interact with us, the people that experience their energies and pass them on, but they also live in the animals, in the plants, in the inanimate objects. Today, technology is coming to a place where they can measure some of these things. It's no longer something that we have to believe based on perception. It's something that even our senses can now confirm. And so we are creating things that are much more meaningful and much more real than our actions. And yet, when we speak about reality, we have to also speak about actions, because that's the level where we interact with each other. Action and speech. Those areas are conscious within humanity right now, to a certain degree. To each individual, to a different degree. The speech and the action. Some are more aware of speech, some are more aware of action, some have no awareness whatsoever. Some become aware of both. And so exile is about looking for the depth, seeing things for what they are behind the curtains, behind the layers, behind all the different coverings, behind the darkness, behind the filth, behind the pain. Exile is about looking at the core, looking at the source, looking at what's real, what's driving, what's making the movement. And so even though these two people are trying to do the same action, behind the scenes, what's happening in those hearts is very different. And that only the one who created us knows. Even the angels don't understand. Humans certainly don't understand. The one who created the heart, he knows where are things arising from, which things are holy and which things are impure, which intentions are building the world and which intentions are destroying the world. And all the actions are only going to be as valuable as the intentions that create them. That's the nature, that's the spiritual nature, is that the more the intention is pure, the more the action will last. Even the Beis HaMikdash, the reason we still have the place that it was, the knowledge of it, the reverence, the respect, all this is based on what was going on in the hearts of David and Shlomo as they were preparing and making that dwelling place for the divine. So it's not the divine that made it holy. The divine is everywhere. If it was the divine, then everywhere would be holy. Everywhere would be the Beis HaMikdash. But what makes the Beis HaMikdash special is that the people who were involved, the people who built it, the people who came to that place and did whatever actions they did in that place, their hearts we're creating something real, something everlasting, something that we can still tap into, something that's keeping us going, that's keeping us alive. Everything real that we know is a result of the hearts that really, 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 really wanted us to know and cared about it and ingrained within their actions and within their speech this very sincere desire. Next week is Hanukkah. Hanukkah is about Klal Yisrael surviving through the exiles. There hasn't been a redemption since Hanukkah. Hanukkah was a renewal of sorts, a renewal that fizzled out pretty quickly in the bigger scheme of things. But nevertheless, Hanukkah reminded us something. It reminded us something that if we want to survive exile, we have to remember, we have to take it into consideration. Hanukkah reminds us that there is a hidden light within all darkness. There's a truth that makes reality be, and that truth could never be erased. Because if that truth were to be erased, there would be nobody to realize that it was erased. The truth that's giving life to all the darkness is a light that can never be erased. It doesn't matter how dark the darkness will be, there's a truth behind it that's giving it existence, that's allowing it to become, that's making it. And that truth can never be destroyed. Humans can pretend whatever they want to pretend, and yet, by the very fact that they're humans, they're attached to something that is much deeper, much higher, much more real than whatever it is they're pretending to be. And so the truth redeems us from all the lies. The darkness could never be so dark that it extinguishes the light. That's not possible. The darkness can only be in perception, in experience, but it can never be in the essence. The essence of existence is light. The essence of existence is life. The essence of existence is joy. The essence of existence is pleasure. This is the nature of life itself. Temporarily, all these things might seem to leave the planet, and yet the essence of life will always come back. The essence of life is reliable. The essence of life can be trusted. The essence of life is intelligent. It knows what it's doing. It's doing us very cleverly. And so this essence can never be extinguished. And this Hanukkah reminds us, this is what lighting candles in the darkness is about. That there's something. And even though we light these candles and we're not meant to use them, we're not meant to use the light. Meaning, we're not lighting the candles in order to get relief. That's not what we're doing. What we're lighting the candles for is to say that even when we don't have relief, the light still goes on. We're not lighting these candles because, now we're going to light it up and we're going to see that really the darkness is light. No, Hanukkah, the darkness remains darkness. Purim, that's v'nahafachu. The darkness becomes light. Hanukkah, the darkness remains darkness. And yet, the light reminds us that there can be no darkness unless it's covering light. Existence is light. Life is light. Perception is light. And that knowledge transforms the nature of the darkness. It doesn't change by removing the darkness. It transforms our perception of the darkness. And the goal of what we're trying to accomplish is that our perception is no longer concerned whether there's darkness or light. What we're trying to realize is that the process of life is going to take us to the light. Whether we realize how it's going to happen, or we know when it's going to happen, or we're working actively towards making it happen, the process of life is going to take us towards the light. That's the nature of what life is. Our desire to cooperate with the process of life can make things easier, can make things faster. But life will be what it was meant to be. We're not going to stand in its way. Nobody will stand in its way. There are many big, powerful people who thought that they can make a difference. And yet, here we are. They're gone. Their ideas are gone. Their beliefs are gone. Whatever it is they were trying to accomplish is no longer relevant. And yet, humanity goes on. Humanity will find its way. So Hanukkah is about renewal within the darkness. It's not about redemption. We're not celebrating redemption. We're celebrating the Or HaGanuz, the hidden light, the light that's hidden everywhere. The light that's hidden in a place that when someone has that light, he doesn't care if it's light or dark anymore. So that's the celebration of Hanukkah. That's coming next week. So may we all be able to tune in, to celebrate, to gain access, at least a little bit, to that place, to that level of perception that's prepared for us, that's within our potential, that's within our essence. We should be able to bring that into our actual experience. And if enough of us can be in a place where there's no difference between light and darkness, then soon enough we'll be able to make it light for everyone. May it happen.